Right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a slight variation of the traffic light sequence. I'm going to look at a different way of just kind of setting up our timers. And then I'm going to show you a very powerful technique that we can use to turn ultimately static timers into more dynamic timers, and gives a lot more flexibility and power ultimately to our structure. Right, so we've got a similar setup with our tags, usual sort of inputs we've seen, some memory bits, probably going to be adding some more to that, and the standard tree color for your lights. So we'll start off, we will set up ultimately our latch here for our run mode, just so that we can get everything started. And again, I'm going to start off a start button just for testing purposes, and then we'll kind of move away from that. So I'm just setting up standard run mode setup, and then we said we know we need then some way of repeating our cycle as well. So when we do repeat the cycle, we want to break that latch to the run mode. Now previously we used run mode to time up all our timers, right? But what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to have more kind of sequential type of timer that feed into each other, and I'm going to use some tags. Okay, so in here I'm actually going to call in a few flags that are going to, well, I'll call them stage, because they'll represent a stage in my sequence. Okay, so if I go stage 0, and I probably need about 3 of them, so I've just created a couple of memory flags there. What they're going to do is they're going to represent stages of my sequence, of the traffic light sequence, and then I'm going to use these to turn on the actual lights. So you'll see this type of technique, very common for sequencing, and you'll see it as we go through. So basically the very first thing I want to do is run mode is going to act as an input. Okay, and the first thing it's going to turn on is going to be the start of the sequence, which is going to be represented with one of my stage markers. Okay, then what's going to happen is that stage marker is going to feed into my timer. Okay, my first timer, we'll put that timer on delay, drop it in. I should be able to call it from what I've initially set up. It's going to be, we'll go time, let's go 5 seconds. Our ET, we should be able to just call that from a previous setup. Timer, no, not timer 0. Okay, I'll just define it. Go time 0. I'm just going to store that in the next available kind of memory block, and then that's going to trigger the next stage in the sequence, stage 1. And we're going to kind of follow this path right on down. I can probably copy these networks. So then stage 1 is going to feed into my next timer. I'll just increment my timer. So again, we'll have this one at 5 seconds. We can call this something different, and then that will be stage 2. And then we'll do another one, stage 2, feed into my next timer. Again, have variable stored for that, and then this is, I'm actually probably at my repeat cycle stage right about now. So let's see what's happening. So ultimately I've started using the push button to start a run mode sequence. that run mode is going to turn on sequence 1, which will feed a timer, which will then turn on the second stage in the sequence, turns on another timer, turns on the next stage, and then we are going to repeat. So if I go ahead, and then I need obviously to trigger my outputs. So initially it's going to start off with red. So red is going to come on as soon as the first part of our cycle is on. And ultimately, when is that red one not going to be on? Well, it's going to be on in stage 0, but we don't want it on in stage 1 or in stage 2 either. Then the next one that's going to come on, and you can literally copy these down as well. Oops, didn't quite do that too well. Copy that network. It's going to be a very similar setup again. Instead of red, we're going to be turning on the orange. Ultimately, the orange is going to come on at stage 1, and then it'll be off at stage 2. So I don't need that part. And then we can pop in another one, which is going to be the green LED, and that's going to come on in stage 2 and ultimately be off in stage 3, and I won't need it there. So we can see our outputs are just being turned on by these sequence markers, which are being turned on earlier in the cycle. So stage 0, 1, 2, okay, so I don't even think I need this third stage. That's just going to be when the repeat cycle comes on. So I don't think I need that one. So get rid of that. So now our sequence should literally just be the exact same. So if I go ahead and start a simulation on that, just to make sure I haven't done anything silly. So we can see that happening there. I just paused the video. This was taking me a bit slow to load up, but you'll see it cycling through my sequence there when I have my start button at true. And we can ultimately see that in our main program. We can see what's happening. We go from the very start, run mode gets turned on, and ultimately we're starting a timer, turning on another stage, and then feeding in to another timer. You see that there, feeds into that timer. Then eventually this one will come on and feed into this one, and then that allows us to repeat the cycle. And we're using ultimately those markers to turn on and off, or do these need to be on and off? Okay, so that's just our standard setup. So what I'm going to do, just go out of simulation, go offline. We're happy enough with that. Right now what I want to do is I want to make my timers a bit more dynamic, because at the moment this is a 5-second timer, this is a 5-second timer, and this is a 5-second timer. And once we run the cycle and turn on the PLC and run it, there's no change. They're always going to be 5-second timers, and there's no change during the program, or no circumstances during the program that can change that. And what I want to do is, I want to say at a particular moment, right, when the green light's on, the green light's currently timing for the green light. Let's see, where's green light's coming on in stage 2. Okay, and that's being timed at 5 seconds. Well, I want to say, if there's a sensor on the road that can tell us that there's cars, plenty of cars coming, that there's heavy traffic, why not keep that, extend this timer out and let it go a bit longer than normal, maybe to 15 seconds, to let those traffics through, just to be kind of sensing that one side is heavier than the other, so we can keep the green light on extended a bit more. Well, how to do that is, it's not too bad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to my network down here, right? we know we had an input that said it was like a traffic sensor. Okay, so that traffic sensor, if that's closed, that's going to tell me, right, there's heavy traffic. And what I want to do is I want to use a move operation, okay, where I am going to move a value into this timer here that's going to overwrite ultimately the 5 seconds and put it to about 10 seconds. So how you do it is you use a move function, right? And I'm going to move a time statement. Okay, so I'm going to say move if there's heavy traffic. Instead of timing for 10 seconds, we're going to put 15-second timer. I'm going to put it into that time and location, right? The time and location is going to be timer 2, the PT value of that, the preset time for timer 2. So we're looking for timer 2 and the preset value. So you're going to move 15 seconds into that location. 15 seconds, there's timer 2, the PT, we're going to move 15 seconds in there instead of 5 seconds. Okay, that's what this statement will do. Now I still need to change it up a wee bit because, well, when do I want to do it? Okay, it would be no good to me moving 15 seconds in, you know, when the green starts, because the green light could come on, traffic will start flowing through, and then, you know, within 5 seconds there could be no traffic left, and now this is on for 15 seconds. So all I want to say is, actually, I want to, when this is timing, and when it gets to about 3 seconds in, because I can monitor the time here on the ET, when it gets to about 3 seconds in, there's 2 seconds left, check, is there traffic heavy, and if there is, then put in the extra bit of time, because there's no use doing it at the start, because all the traffic could be gone by the time the 5 seconds elapses. But if we check towards the end of the timer, we can ultimately add on a bit of time if there is a need for it. So we can introduce another operation here that's a conversion, comparator. And we want to compare if greater than or equal to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare if the current value of that timer is greater than or equal to, let's say, 3 seconds. Because the standard timer is supposed to time for 5 seconds. So we're saying when it gets to 3 seconds or greater, so when that time value gets to 3 seconds or greater, if the traffic is heavy, move this in. And you know what I like to even do is just, I prefer to actually separate these out, these commands out. And if I can put that in there, I prefer to turn on a little marker just for, I can do a kind of status property view of it. So we're going to have a memory bit. It's going to be called extend green LED if you want, because it's going to extend the green LED out. Just going to be a new marker, and that I'm going to use ext, so extend the green. So if the traffic's heavy during the last 2 seconds of the timer, extend out the green, and I'm going to use that then as an input to the move command to extend it out. And what we're going to do is we're going to move 15 seconds into that timer location. So then instead of timing at 5, it's going to time up to 15 seconds. So it's now a dynamic timer rather than a static timer. But what we also need to check as well is, you know, once we move that value in, 15 in, if we go to repeat our cycle, it's still going to be at 15. So we've got to kind of write some code in to reset us back to the 5 seconds, because the traffic could be gone, and in the next cycle we don't want to be counting to 15 seconds. Well, how about we actually just have a look at this, testing this first, and then we'll make the change. Okay, so we're going to download this code in. So what I want to do is I'm just going to force on a start button, start our sequence, force it on. Right, so we'll see our standard sequence again, just going through usual 5 seconds for each. So that was red, now we're on to orange, and in 5 seconds back to green, and then another 5 seconds we'll go into red. So what I want to do now is my traffic sensor, right, I'm going to put this high, and I'm actually just going to wait until it just goes back to red again, before I monitor it, before I change it. Right, so traffic is now high. So if we look in here, see the traffic sensor's high. The current value in that timer 2 is 5 seconds. Watch here, we get up to 3 seconds, extended green out, move 15 seconds into the timer. So that's that done, that's now gone to 15, and look, this is now counting up to 15 seconds. The green light's still staying on, it's up to 15 seconds. And then the cycle's repeating. So this part is working. But now the problem is when we go to, repeat through this, and actually it did work, it went all ahead. There we are. I was going to show us something else, but yes, because that will get cut off due to our repeat. Yes, okay, because of our repeat cycle marker. And we already have our standard 5 seconds in there. Once we cut the power to everything, so everything loses power, so all our stages, because repeat cycle is going to cut run mode, which will cut stage 0 and ultimately cut all our timers. It resets our timer back down, which allows 5 seconds to be loaded back in on this timer. So you'll see that change here. You'll see 15 seconds in it. Then once we time to 15 seconds, you'll see this cut, and then ultimately this gets refreshed. Back down to 5 seconds. So now if I turn the traffic off, so say the traffic has gone away, back into in here, put this to false, modify that. Now when this comes back around to green, back into main, you'll see it times up. When it gets to 3 seconds, it didn't have heavy traffic, so it's not going to go to extend the green. So it's not going to change now to 15 seconds. See that when it gets to 3 seconds, this part was high, but it hasn't got this part. So extend green now goes out. So 5 seconds never changes to 15 seconds. If that wasn't resetting back for you down to 5 seconds, what we would just do is we do another move command. We'd move, instead of moving 15, we'd move 5 seconds back into our timer on the repeat. So it would just be an extra move function. But actually, because of the way I've set up my code, in the sense that all my timers lose power when this repeat cycle happens, they all get reset down, back down to 0, the time value, and then because I'm starting with this initial load here of 5 seconds, that gets popped back in, and then only if this scenario is achieved, then we can put the 15 seconds in. So I'm hoping that's clear. It's a very powerful technique to make your code a lot more dynamic and can change due to circumstances rather than just being so fixed and rigid. Really, really powerful stuff, and really where you want to be progressing your coding onto. Hopefully it makes sense. I know it was a little bit messy in the explanation, but hopefully you can kind of see it there. The best thing to do is download the code yourself, copy it in, and try it out yourself and see how it works.